The American Lie: How It Destroyed Nations and Distorted History. Over the decades, the United States has positioned itself as the leader of the free world, claiming to promote democracy and fight terrorism. But behind this embellished facade lie bloody truths about the wars it waged, the countries it destroyed, and the peoples who suffered from its interventions. From Afghanistan to Iraq, from Vietnam to Somalia, it becomes clear that the American dream was a bloody nightmare for many nations. How did the United States fabricate this grand lie? Afghanistan, the never-ending war. In 2001, under the pretext of eradicating al-Qaeda and the Taliban, the United States launched its longest war in modern history, a war that lasted more than 20 years, leaving thousands dead and destroying the country's infrastructure. It ended in a humiliating withdrawal in 2021, leaving Afghanistan once again in the hands of the Taliban as if nothing had changed. Over 2 decades, Washington poured billions of dollars and used the latest in warfare technology, yet it failed miserably to build a stable government or win the support of the Afghan people. The chaotic images from Kabul airport in 2021, where desperate Afghans clung to evacuation planes, became a new symbol of America's defeat and its inability to achieve peace. Iraq, the lie of weapons of mass destruction. In 2003, the United States justified its invasion of Iraq with false claims about Saddam Hussein's possession of weapons of mass destruction. Washington found no evidence of such weapons, yet it destroyed an entire country, igniting sectarian conflicts that continue to this day. The result was catastrophic. Iraq turned into a battlefield of chaos, with extremist groups like ISIS emerging and the infrastructure completely destroyed. Despite promises of reconstruction, Iraq sank into a spiral of violence and corruption, while American companies seized its oil, resembling a colonial invasion under a modern guise. Vietnam, the memory of humiliating defeat. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, was one of the most devastating wars in American history, as the United States faced fierce Vietnamese resistance led by communist guerrillas. Despite its military superiority, Washington failed to achieve any real victory, and in 1975, it was forced to withdraw in a humiliating scene where the last soldiers were seen fleeing from the roof of the American embassy in Saigon. This war was not just a military defeat. It significantly impacted the American home front, sparking massive protests and diminishing public trust in the government, leading to a major shift in American policy regarding foreign military interventions. Somalia, military failure in African jungles. In the early 1990s, the United States intervened in Somalia under the banner of providing humanitarian aid. However, the intervention quickly turned into a tragedy when American forces faced violent resistance, culminating in the Battle of Mogadishu in 1993, where American soldiers were killed and their bodies dragged through the streets before the cameras. This military failure forced America to rethink its strategy, resorting to indirect wars through proxies or airstrikes instead of ground interventions. The Cuban Missile Crisis, the world on the brink of destruction. In October 1962, humanity came closest to a nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union. After Moscow deployed nuclear missiles in Cuba in response to America's deployment of missiles in Turkey, the world stood on the edge of nuclear annihilation. Although American media portrayed John Kennedy as the hero who prevented war, the truth was that America initiated the escalation first and imposed a naval blockade on Cuba, threatening military action. The crisis ended after the United States secretly agreed to withdraw its missiles from Turkey, a fact that was not made public until decades later. However, it revealed America's double standards, as it does not accept the presence of weapons near its borders while it spreads its military bases worldwide. Distorting Russia's image. The fabricated enemy. The United States has long sought to portray Russia as a permanent enemy, and instead of acknowledging the richness of its cultural and intellectual heritage, the media and cinema have been exploited to shape a negative image of Russians. Since the Cold War, Hollywood has become a platform for promoting this image, leading to the neglect of the great achievements of Russian literature and significant scientific and technological contributions. The literary and cultural heritage of Russia. Russian literature is among the richest in history, providing the world with many great writers and philosophers. Among them is Fyodor Dostoevsky, who is considered one of the greatest novelists in history. His works explore themes of existentialism, morality, and humanity, with novels such as The Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment still being studied in universities worldwide. Leo Tolstoy is another prominent figure, known for his epic novels like War and Peace and Anna Karenina, which address issues of love, war, and society. He is regarded as a symbol of realistic literature and is taught globally. Anton Chekhov, one of the greatest short story writers, is celebrated for his unique style in addressing everyday life and existential themes. Additionally, Russia has contributed to various fields, such as space exploration, the launch of Sputnik and advancements in space science, physics, including Albert Einstein's groundbreaking work on relativity, and mathematics, distorting the image through cinema and media. Despite these achievements, the United States has sought to distort the image of Russians and the Russian man through cinema and media. During the Cold War, Hollywood began producing films that reinforced the image of Russians as enemies, films highlighting the negative image of Russians. The James Bond film series is a prominent example of how Russians are portrayed as enemies. In films like From Russia with Love and Octopussy, Russians appear as evil agents conspiring against the Western world. Another notable film is Rocky IV, where American boxer Rocky Balboa competes against Soviet champion Ivan Drago, portraying Russians as ruthless adversaries that reflect the political tensions between the United States and Russia. In The Hunt for Red October, Russians are depicted as military threats, reinforcing negative perceptions about Russian military power. Lastly, Red Dawn presents a scenario where the United States is invaded by Soviet forces, further enhancing the image of Russians as invaders. Double standards. The use of American media as a tool to distort Russia's image reflects the double standards in its dealings with its adversaries. While promoting the image of Russians as enemies, it ignores their cultural and intellectual achievements and their rich history. This strategy not only reinforces negative stereotypes, but also exacerbates international tensions. Conclusion. The cultural and literary heritage of Russia cannot be compared to the American cowboy legacy. It carries a historical and intellectual depth that cannot be overlooked. While the United States seeks to distort Russia's image, Russian literature and cultural achievements stand as testament to the profound impact Russians have made on the world. It is essential to reevaluate these stereotypes and highlight the truth about the rich Russian heritage. Hollywood, a double-edged sword between historical fabrication and artistic monopoly. American propaganda is not limited to news media, but extends to Hollywood, where the United States is consistently portrayed as an invincible power. Films like Rambo, American Sniper, Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, and Top Gun have created a stereotypical image of American soldiers as superhuman heroes who always triumph over their enemies, even when the truth is otherwise. Hollywood's role in historical fabrication. A detailed look at some famous films reflects how Hollywood used cinema as a propaganda tool to shape historical narratives. The film Rambo: First Blood, released in 1982, follows John Rambo, a former Special Forces soldier who returns to the United States after a harrowing experience in Vietnam. It highlights how veterans are treated upon their return home and showcases their remarkable combat skills, reflecting the American fighting spirit and reinforcing the image of the individual hero battling against oppression. Rambo became a symbol of American heroism and was used as a means to justify military interventions in conflict zones. In American Sniper, released in 2014 and directed by Clint Eastwood, the story is based on the autobiography of Chris Kyle, one of the deadliest snipers in U.S. history. The film depicts his experiences in Iraq and the war's impact on his personal life, reinforcing the image of the American soldier as brave and dedicated while ignoring the political and social complexities of the war in Iraq. Saving Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg and released in 1998, is set during World War II and follows a team of American soldiers sent to find Private Ryan after his brothers are killed in action. The film highlights the brutality of war and the suffering of soldiers. It is considered a turning point in war films, showing the violent reality of war while also elevating the values of bravery and sacrifice. Black Hawk Down, released in 2001 and directed by Ridley Scott, is based on the true events of an American military mission in Mogadishu, Somalia, in 1993. It recounts the story of American soldiers facing fierce resistance while trying to rescue fellow soldiers. The film presents an image of courage and sacrifice, but also reflects the chaos and failure of that mission, provoking discussion about American military interventions. Finally, Top Gun, released in 1986 and directed by Tony Scott, focuses on fighter pilots in the U.S. Navy, emphasizing competition and training at a flight school. The film portrays an idealized image of American pilots and promotes patriotic spirit, contributing to an increase in recruitment in the Navy and becoming a symbol of aerial heroism. These films demonstrate how Hollywood used cinema as a means to shape historical narratives and formulate national values. While many of these films present exciting and impactful scenes, they often ignore the complexities and historical truths, significantly influencing how the audience understands historical events. The media, a tool for manipulating minds. American media is not just a transmitter of news, it is a powerful tool for reshaping reality. Through major news channels like CNN and Fox News, information is manipulated to serve political agendas, making American crimes appear as humanitarian interventions. By selecting which stories to highlight and ignoring the disasters caused by Washington, the media contributes to misleading the public, allowing the government to continue its aggressive policies without real opposition. Will the lies ever stop? American history is filled with lies and phantom victories. From Afghanistan to Iraq, from Vietnam to Somalia, the true aim has not been to achieve democracy or spread peace, but rather economic and military hegemony. As the fabrication of lies continues through Hollywood and the media, the question remains, will there come a day when America acknowledges its crimes, or will the lie persist forever?